This is the Jeff Jerina Show.
Hey, what's going on? It's Jeff here, and thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. Now, if you've been feeling distracted or maybe pulled in 100 directions, or maybe you're just struggling to slow down and connect with God in the middle of all the noise and busyness of life, I have a book just for you. It's a book I wrote several years ago, and it's called Cut Through the Noise, 4 Steps to Joy, Peace, and Freedom. Now, in this book, I show you how to break free from all the chaos, how to remove distractions, how to eliminate hurry, and truly experience God on a deeper level. And the book is available in paperback, hardcover, ebook, and audiobook formats. And hey, if you just want to test the waters, just to see if the book is for you, you can learn more about the book, you can get your own copy, and even download a free audiobook chapter of the book right now at jeffjerina.com/noise. Okay, so in this podcast, what I'm going to be sharing with you today is something that every one of us, I think that every one of us should be trying to do, regardless of whether or not you're a leader or not. And it's this idea of leading from overflow rather from empty. And so here's the deal. Many of us as leaders, as entrepreneurs, and really just everyday people, oftentimes fall into this same trap. And this trap that I'm talking about is where we keep pouring out, we keep giving, we keep leading, and we keep serving until our tank is bone dry. You know, we have nothing left to give others, and we really have nothing left for ourselves. So I'm just going to give you a quick scenario here, and I want you to see if this sounds familiar to you. So here it is. You know, you look at your calendar for the week, and you realize, okay, whoa, wait a second. I've got a full schedule. And you just kind of, you're looking at the schedule, you take a deep sigh, and you say to yourself, how in the world am I going to get all this done? Seriously, you see this endless to-do list that you have, and the emails and the text messages, they start piling up. Maybe even right now they start flooding in, right, as you're listening to this podcast. And you got all these people needing you left and right, but instead of slowing down and taking some stuff off your plate, right, you just keep going and going and going. You just keep giving and giving and giving until suddenly you realize you're running on fumes. You've got nothing left. And so here's the truth here, and I'm sure you already know this. You can't give what you don't have, right? You can't sustain all those appearances, all those activities, your business, your calling, or your relationships long term if you're trying to lead from empty. And so Jesus put it this way. He said in John 15, verse 5, he said this. He said, I'm the vine, you're the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you'll bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Now, that's not just a great verse, right, for a morning devotional. That's reality. And so without staying connected to Him, to our very source of life on a continual or consistent basis, we may run hard, we may run fast for a while. We may even look successful on the outside, right? But eventually something is going to break. And most of the time, what that is us. And what happens is all that overflow that you've got, that we once had, it all dries up. And so the Apostle Paul, he echoed this in Philippians 4:13. He said this. He said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I say that verse a lot. I say, man, I can do all things because Jesus is going to strengthen me. So in a way, oftentimes I'm like, I can do anything. Well, obviously, if it's in the Lord's will. But we have to look at this verse and realize it's not us doing it. It's not through our own power. It's not through yourself or through your grit or through all the grind and all the effort. It's not through your stamina, your physical prowess. It's not through your great business plan. It's not even through your own natural gifting. And I'm speaking to myself here too. But all that is through Jesus Christ. And we have to remember that. And when we ignore this and we keep going in our own strength and we think, hey, we're doing this all on our own, here's what happens. We get reactive instead of proactive. And life, it begins to feel like it's, we're in this one giant fire drill where it feels like we're always rushed, we're always tired, we're always stressed, and most of the time, we're overwhelmed by all the demands and distractions of our own life. And so we start leading from stress instead of vision. And what I'm talking about here is where fear begins to drive our decisions instead of the faith that we have in God's plan and His timing for our life. And I think maybe even worst of all is that we lose our joy and our peace. And where any type of, leadership that we have, whether it's in your business or maybe at your work or even at home, as a mom or a dad, you feel like it's a grind instead of a calling, where you just want to get through the day instead of getting from the day. You're just like, man, I want this day, this week to be over with so I can get to the next thing and reset. And so Charles Spurgeon, he once said this. He said, if you are weak in communion with God, you're going to be weak in everything else. That's so true, right? Because leadership and life itself, it can drain you emotionally, or let's just say this, it will drain you emotionally. It'll drain you physically, mentally, and spiritually. And so really the only way to keep going is we got to refuel, right? You got to recharge and you got to reset. So how do you do all that? How do you stay filled up? Well, it's not complicated, right? To do that. And at the same time, it's not easy. We have to do some work. We got to set some things aside. But I will say this, it is intentional. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to design your life in a way where you receive before you give. And what I'm talking about here is that you have to get filled up first before you even think about giving anything away. If you think about your phone, if you don't charge that phone up at nighttime, the next morning, you're not going to have any power left in that phone. It's not going to turn on. So you got to refuel first. You got to get filled up first. You got to recharge first. And so from what I've experienced in my own life, I'm going to give you one powerful way to do that. Here's one way that you can start. Number one, begin your day with God. And Psalm 63 verse 1 says, "O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you." So before the phone, before the meetings, before the calendar, before the TV, before the chaos, all that start with God. Even if it's just, for 5 to 15 minutes. Get into God's Word. Pray. All this can completely shift the tone of your day. It can really change the outlook and the perspective that you have for your day today, for your whole week, for your whole month. Now, that's not just one step, right? And if you're wondering, okay, Jeff, but what about the rest of my life? How do I stay consistent on doing all this? How do I cut through all the distractions, and how do I actually live this out in my everyday routine? Well, that's exactly what I talk about, and I walk you through in my book, Cut Through the Noise. I break it down into a simple, practical framework that fits into your normal life right now, so you can slow down, hear God more clearly, and live with greater peace and purpose. Now, again, if you want to go deeper into that, you can get your own copy today at jeffjerina.com/noise. Okay, so when you're filled up, when you're abiding in Jesus Christ, everything changes, right? Your vision, and I'm talking about here the direction that you need to go in life, the stuff that how you perceive things and kind of like your path and how you feel like, okay, this is my purpose, this is my calling, this is what I need to do. All that tends to clear up, and your decisions get better. Your relationships have a tendency to grow deeper, and you lead from peace rather than panic. And so I'm going to give you another quote here. It's from Oswald Chambers, and he once said this. He said, "The measure of the worth of our public activity for God is the private, profound communion we have with Him." Man, that one hits right there. So in other words, what he's saying here is that what people see you doing in public is only as strong as what's happening in your private walk with God. So I want to give you some final thoughts here to wrap up this podcast episode. And hopefully as you take these with you, they're going to encourage you in some way. So here's the first thing I want to say. You can't pour from an empty cup. You got to stay connected to the source, right? And when you do that, you're going to have everything that you need to lead well. And so if you're ready to take the next step and you want to start leading from overflow again, I would say that for this week, for you this week, that you identify just one area where you've been running on fumes, and then take one intentional step to refill it. And maybe for you that means that you have to say no to one extra meeting. Maybe that means, hey, I'm not watching this particular Netflix or Amazon series this week. I'm not going to do it. Maybe it's setting the alarm 20 minutes earlier so you can spend some time reading the Bible. Or maybe it's just, calling a mentor or a close friend who can speak some life into you, that can give you some encouragement today. And remember that the people that you're leading, your family, your business, your work, your ministry, they need you at your best. You need to be at your best. And your best comes when you're leading from the overflow of God's presence in your life. Not the absence, but the presence. All right, so thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If this encouraged you in any way, please share it with a friend, a family member, or even a coworker. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And hey, if you're ready to start breaking through all the demands and distractions of life and really connect with God and finally get back your life, don't forget to check out my book, Cut Through the Noise, at jeffjerina.com/noise. And remember, you can even download a free audiobook chapter right now just to test it out. See you later. God bless.